This episode is brought to you by Backwards Planning Financial. Start planning for your death before you're gone.
In November of 2025, President Donald Trump announced plans to introduce a new 50-year mortgage for homes. Federal Housing Agency Director Bill Pulte called the move a game changer, as it was meant to reduce the burden of homeownership for many Americans who have faced 30-year fixed rates stuck above 6% for more than 3 years. Currently, according to Redfin data, the median U.S. household spends about 40% of its monthly income on mortgage repayments, well above the long-term affordability benchmarks. Pulte, for his part, blamed Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, who hiked interest rates to curb inflation, but has since resumed easing cautiously, saying on X that he is keeping rates artificially high. Many young Americans are feeling the pressure as home ownership slips further and further out of reach. At its core, the proposed 50-year loan product targets lower monthly payments by extending the standard amortization period. For instance, Fannie Mae's calculator estimates that for a $400,000 home at 6.575% interest rate with 20% down, the monthly principal and interest would be $2,788 on a 30-year fixed, $2,640 for 40 years, and $2,572 for 50 years. But there are significant downsides for a minimal lowering of the monthly rate. Total interest paid goes up drastically, slows the accrual of equity, and potentially traps borrowers in debt for most or all of their lives. The move would also likely raise home prices, creating a windfall for sellers and incumbent buyers and penalizing first-time homebuyers. The deeper problem is that younger Americans simply don't see a bright future, as the first-time homebuyer age rises to an all-time high of 40 years old. Without owned space, many young people sense that they're living in captivity, a form of socially engineered captivity at that. Ambition to build a legacy, invest in future generations, and pass on wealth is thoroughly punished by the current system. But what can be done? In this episode, we'll talk with our friend Stephen Totter about his plans to solve this problem, or at least try to, with Exchequer Cross, a patronage project aimed at building the new Christendom. It's a way to play within the rules of the current system, but by using precious metal backing and investors, reduce the financial hardship required to build legacy homes. The King's Hall podcast exists to make self-ruled men who rule well and win the world.
Well, welcome to this episode of the King's Hall podcast. I'm your host, Eric Kahn, joined today by the one, the only, the very handsome, Brian Sauvé.
Good to hear. Hey, and joined by our listeners, King's Hall listeners. You're the real MVPs of this situation.
And we have a special guest today in studio.
We do.
For the very first time, Mr. Stephen Totter.
Thank you, sir.
Well,
good to have you. You're white monstered up.
I am.
Oh, yeah.
We're ready to cook.
Yep.
Brian, speaking of cooking, finance is a lot like cooking
It really is.
in that you have to prepare beforehand.
You have to have a recipe.
You have to start at the end and think backwards
That's right.
to what that main dish will be like.
What a seamless transition into the headline sponsor of this episode. The headline sponsor of this episode is going to watch this and say, they seamlessly sold my business on that show. I couldn't even tell that it was an ad.
Wait, this is about the headline sponsor?
It is.
Who?
Backward Planning Financial. Our guy, Joe Garrissey.
Oh, I can't even believe it.
If you're looking for financial services, Joe Garrissey is your guy. He is going to help you plan backward and achieve your goals. So, which is the way you got to do it. You can't just get to the end of your life and then say, wait a second, I'm supposed to have some money or something here to like hand on to my children and not die destitute. Joe can help you.
So if you want to have money at the end of your life to give to the cat library,
don't do that.
don't do that.
If you do that,
we'll be very upset with you.
Joe will actually, if you're sitting with him for a free consult, when he's like setting up your plan and you say something like that, he'll actually just No, but he will help.
I'm sure Joe will appreciate that.
Yeah.
I want to transition now
Okay.
from a financial conversation
In
to
2026, that's a dangerous sentence to say, Eric. Be careful.
Mr.
careful.
Stephen Totter.
Yeah, that's
welcome
more-
to the
more-
show.
Thank you.
I want to get a little bit of your background.
Yeah.
So our listeners know who you are. Of course, we know you, but they don't.
They don't know you.
So start with just some of your background. Who are you? What have you done in the world? And then we'll get into what you're up to now.
Yeah. So I've had kind of a lot of different hats I've worn over the years, but I'm an attorney. I'm a real estate investor. Very involved in our local church, and a family man, husband, and father of 4 daughters.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And part of your story is you actually have a connection to ICE.
That is true. That is true. Yes. I was assigned to a variety of roles in the government over the years. But one of my favorite accomplishments was being awarded by the ICE director for apprehending a known terrorist.
A known terrorist.
Yeah, you may not know this, but we confirmed this before we recorded that the show 24 is loosely based on Stephen's life.
Very loosely.
Yeah,
Very
loosely
loosely.
based. Yeah,
They had to actually tone it down
they did
because
it has to be realistic.
Jack Bauer is a little less exciting.
It has to be believable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it absolutely does.
So, attorney, what's it like? Should we call you Esquire? Is there like a? We really screwed this up.
I insist upon it. Yeah.
I insist upon
Dang
it.
it. We'll with AI, we'll edit it back in post.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Dave. Dave is dead. When he wasn't, he was a successful businessman with a rather large estate. This is Ben. As Dave's son, Ben has just inherited a logistical nightmare. Dave wasn't exactly organized with his estate. Sorting through folders, receipts, and records, a hunting lodge in Montana, a 401k, lots of investments, several bank accounts, and of course, taxes. Ben was overwhelmed. Enter Joe Garcia, Backwards Planning Financial. When Ben called Joe and explained everything, Joe replied,
No problem. That's easy.
and somehow it was. With Joe's guidance, Ben was able to put a robust financial plan in place which helped mitigate risk and bring order to the chaos, while building wealth, organizing his estate, easing the tax burdens, and cutting unnecessary costs. He helped Ben do something Dave never did: plan ahead. Starting at the end and working backwards, Ben now has a plan for his own family. Now his kids won't go through what he did when he eventually... Backwards Planning Financial. Start planning for your death before you're gone. So you served as well, was it Iraq War?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess just as you think about that, college, attorney, what you're doing now, I guess just walk me through how that has shaped kind of how you view the world and what you're trying to accomplish at this point in your life.
Yeah. So I think, like a lot of people, I had a very normal career trajectory until COVID happened. And then that just opens your eyes up to a whole lot of things that are going on behind the scenes. And that was a really big pivot for me into real estate as well, because you realize you need to have a backup plan. You need to have something that you're doing that's outside of the normal W-2 system. And so I started working on that more in earnest and founded Kurios Capital, taking on investors and doing real estate projects with Christians. And so that was definitely a large pivot for me.
Yeah. And especially like you think about building a legacy. I think obviously people who have a family, right? It's often been said they have an investment in the future. So as you think about finances, you think about building outside the W-2 system. How does the family legacy portion connect for you?
Yeah, well, it's a biblical mandate, right? Is that we're supposed to leave to our children and our children's children. And so that's very important when you realize what the government is doing to our money. You can't just put your money underneath your mattress and hope that you can pass that along to your children someday. There's tax implications. There's just thinking about where value is going to be in the future and what is happening to our economic system. So many times these changes are just very difficult for people to see in the moment. And then we can only really see it looking back. And it's important for especially Christian men to be educated about finances and about the economic systems and realize where things are heading in the future. Because you can't provide for your children's children if you don't know what things are roughly going to be like in the future.
Yeah. And I think people have seen that even recently. You know, we're watching all the Trump talking about the devaluing of the dollar. I think the thing that surprised me was he was saying like, yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
We're actually trying to devalue the dollar. So we've talked about that, Brian. I mean, that, first of all, like, we don't want to get in hot wars, but if there's a thing that ever makes a guy want to get in a hot war, it's like, I'm looking at the money and what houses cost. It's a real thing. And like, we've talked about this with the church. It's a real challenge with young families who are working very hard, but they can't afford a home.
No, there's only one safe thing to do right now, and even that is no guarantee of success, and that is to build. You have to build, you have to create value, you have to be somehow, whether directly or indirectly through investment, involved in the business world, because the dollar is inflating away. We can't lower housing prices because, that might affect a certain generation that rhymes with, well, I was going to say Zoomer, but
Loomer.
but there's two that rhyme with it. I'm talking about baby boomers. I'm sorry. So, we can't lower the value of their homes and their second home. And, they bought for a stick of chewing gum and their summer job at, I don't know, McDonald's flipping burgers or something like that. So, the only safe thing to do really is to build. Like, you have to look into the future and say, where am I going to put my strength? It's going to produce value. That's going to, and the beauty of that is that mindset really does serve people. Because that's what businesses exist to do. A good business, it serves people. It loves your neighbor. It takes care of your countrymen, hopefully, if we're doing it right. So, I agree. It is infuriating. But the only thing to do is smile and build.
Yeah. Well, I think it hit me years ago. This is sometime around COVID. People were, talking about cryptocurrency and different ways to store the value of your money. And I remember Elon Musk saying like, yeah, ultimately you need wealth generation. Like, that's the thing that you've got to get into. But I like part of your story too, Stephen, because it's not just wealth. There's so many aspects of legacy building that have to be a part of what you're doing. And part of what you're doing is the classical education. So I wonder if you would just talk a little bit about what you're involved with there, why that matters, like why invest your time, energy, and money into what you're doing there.
Yeah. So I am the chairman of a K through 12 classical Christian school, and we've seen a lot of growth over the years, mainly due to the failure of the public school system.
Oh, yeah.
Especially during COVID, where people essentially were missing a year of education. It's just become more desperate for a lot of parents. And so thinking about how we build that and how you can create a school where this is something where parents can enter into it, right? These are parents who have suffered under the public school system, and it's still accessible to them, but at the same time, good for the people who have started up from the beginning. It's a challenge. It's a definite challenge because you're going to have to take people from the outside who have missed 1 year, 2 years of real education.
Yeah. Well, we've seen this too. I mean, it seems like, especially like you said, since like COVID, but the number of people fleeing the public education system, which is actually, I mean, for us, it's actually encouraging that people are starting to take this seriously. But I remember there were like families who got sent home with like curriculum and videos to watch. So parents for the first time were like engaging with what the curriculum was from the public school system. And we had like neighbors come to our house and they were like, do you know what they're teaching our children? And we're like, yeah, that's why we don't go there.
Yeah. But we do.
But then after that, it really was funny because a lot of people, they were like, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. We got to find an alternative homeschool or whatever. We were we were the weirdos because we were homeschooling. But then all of a sudden
they're like, hey, how did you do that?
Yeah.
We've lost trust on so many levels with the architects of culture and leadership in our society that it's not actually wrong that a parent should be able to think on some level, oh, I can trust the leaders of my society to do good to me, because that's their whole thing. They're supposed to do you good, right? To praise the good and punish the wrongdoer. And however, you're naive today to think that they are, because they're not. They're actually socially engineering your kids for the good of their ends, which are not your good.
Yeah.
So while it was disappointing to find out that parents hadn't thought about it before that, you're like, this is the first time you're wondering what they're learning in the public school. But it was still encouraging that at least, even though it took that many of them did finally figure it out and go, oh, I should probably take charge of the education of my children. It's almost like they belong to me or something.
It's almost as if.
Yeah. Weird.
Yeah. The dependency on the public school system has really developed as part of the economic model that our country has chased, right? Following so-called free trade and the gutting of the middle class has made a lot of parents have to rely on the public school system as essentially babysitting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just the hours have gotten longer and longer. The programs associated with it have gotten so much larger to accommodate two parents working full time.
Even the time spent in school, we've talked about this with our school, where it's like education now goes to like 25, maybe later for a lot of people. Whereas, we're often thinking about like, well, how would you actually get people? What if there's a 16-year-old who actually is going to go into the trades? Should he be in school till 25? Probably not. He should probably start thinking about vocational training and get involved with that.
Yeah.
And then, like you've started doing a lot of stuff with real estate. Maybe it's like getting those kids involved in that from a pretty early age, very important.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you about that with real estate. How did you get involved with that originally?
Yeah, it started off very small and just realizing that your W-2 job is not going to provide real wealth for you in the long term. A lot of people are putting into 401ks and IRAs, and that money is going towards companies that largely hate us.
Yeah.
Right. And so taking charge of it yourself is really important. And that's the conclusion that I came to about 2018. And so I started very small. I started with a townhome and then moved up to a single family home and then duplexes and triplexes. And then in the early 2020s was pivoting towards apartment buildings and larger real estate projects.
Is it still an area where people can get involved in real estate? It's still a good time to get into it, or is it tougher now?
It is tougher now. I think the biggest challenge is that if you look back at the last decade, you could throw money up against a wall and it would stick.
Yeah.
You could get into real estate and you could be terrible at it. You could be terrible at the operations and logistics, and you were basically going to be bailed out because just the value of real estate was going up, and that was going to save you. That is over.
Yeah.
They're really calling this decade the decade of operations. You have to be able to operate a real estate project. You have to be actually competent at it in order to make money because of higher interest rates and the higher cost of the real estate.
So do you see less people getting involved in it? And maybe it seems like it would weed some people out too, if you're not good at operating.
Yeah, less people should. I mean, there's a lot of programs that encourage people to get into real estate, I think, without really counting the cost of that. And a mortgage on a property can easily take you down and put you into bankruptcy, especially the larger you get and the more leveraged you are. And so a lot of people have been giving bad advice over the last 10 years for just anybody to get into real estate. And, in many ways, that's what I did, right? I got into it without having prior experience in real estate or anybody in my family who was an expert at that. So I benefited from that and the Lord blessed it. But there's a lot of people out there who just do not have the competency to be able to navigate the market that we're in today.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. One of the things you said, I think that was interesting to me, did you say you're in 4 different countries?
Yes, 4 different countries now. Still, the vast majority of my portfolio is in the United States, but I've started to invest into Africa as well.
Really? What got you interested in that?
I've always been interested in the continents of Africa, just as it's a place that's exciting. It's really challenging in terms of operating logistics and being able to do that from a distance. If you think it's a challenge to make a snowplow magically appear somewhere in New Hampshire for one of your tenants, it is even more challenging to do that across nations. But there's a huge marginal advantage there for an American to invest into Africa. For one thing, the currencies in Africa are the inflation rates are much higher, right? So
the value of money is low.
Right. So the effect of that is if you were to invest in real estate in the United States, your mortgage is going to get cheaper over time because we're inflating, right? And we all realize this because we have, boomer relatives who bought a house for, a pack of bubble gum and a couple $100. And before long, their mortgage is essentially nothing by the time they're done with their 30-year term. And that's because of inflation. Well, imagine doing that same thing in a country that has an inflation rate of 10% per year, right? Now, the trouble for doing that that you have in doing that is that, if you're somebody who's local in Africa, you're not going to be given credit. Right. But as an American, you have a higher marginal advantage going into that situation. You can also, as an American, go into these countries and get a meeting with one of the developmental leaders, a government leader, very easily compared to somebody else. So
Was that? I'm just curious. Like, how did you even start with that? Like, if you ask me, like, Eric, how do you become the next Cecil Rhodes?
You call another guy named Eric. Eric Prince.
And you say, Eric, help me out, guy.
Yeah.
Well, it's just crazy. Like, to even think of that seems so like far fetched, but as you're saying, it's not that crazy to do.
It isn't. And so many people in general are just scared about getting into real estate to begin with. And then you add on to that, well, getting into real estate or business projects in Africa. I mean, so few people actually venture into doing it that there's an enormous opportunity there, again, if you can navigate the difficulties with it. And I would never recommend that everybody put all their eggs into that basket. It is more of a higher risk, but there's just incredible opportunities there for an American to be investing in there.
So when you think about investing in Africa, because you're very much in America, you love America. You want America to thrive. You're not necessarily investing in Africa, not that you don't care about the people in Africa, but you're investing in a different country for the sake of America, in a sense. How does that work? How do you think through, as an American, wanting to build things in America, make our country better? How do you think that through?
Yeah, well, I'd start just going backwards a little bit to the big picture. A lot of these areas of Africa, especially North Africa, are really part of Christendom historically. They're part of the Christian West, and that was their story before the Muslim invasions and the changes that happened. But prior to that, these were areas that were sending out missionaries, like Egypt, for example.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that we understand that this is part of our heritage as well. But going further from that and saying, well, how does this, benefit us here in the United States? The economic model is going to completely change over the next 10 years. And it's going to change from what we've seen in the past in terms of free trade to industrial policy in the United States. The need for raw resources is going to actually increase, not decrease.
Yeah.
So as we see that happening, Americans can be at the forefront of that by investing into Africa.
So you're thinking resources in Africa, and then a businessman and with connections, whether your own endeavors or other people in your network here, manufacturing is increasing. We need these connections with a note of trust, because trust is really the thing that seems to be of utmost importance when you're investing across a border like that. You couldn't just hand money to somebody over there that and know that it's going to do anything other than disappear into the labyrinth of African fraud or something like that. But if you know a guy and you have I know this associate and he's invested here, he can get me that thing I need for my business here that's going to build American manufacturing and bless, and is it that kind of thinking?
Yeah, you have to start building up the relationships of trust, and there's no way to do it but to take some risk.
Yeah.
Right. But you can do that through relationships that you've built in the United States and connections that people have back to Africa. So once you start building those connections, it's like getting reps in, right? You're taking risk, but you're learning a lot as you go along. You start off small and then you build it and make it stronger. And there's no way to get around it. You just have to go and do it and experiment, and sometimes fail.
How long until you're the president of Libya, would you say?
5 years.
5 years, okay.
5 years.
2031.
Yeah.
2031.
It will be the new Rhodesia.
I mean,
Like
we need a
the old
fallback
Rhodesia.
plan.
Yes.
If stuff doesn't, I'm hopeful, but if stuff doesn't go well, we're going to need a Libyan warlord that we trust.
That's right.
Okay.
What is interesting, because like I went to public school. Were you raised public school?
I was actually homeschooled.
Okay,
Yeah.
homeschooled. Okay, so excluding Stephen,
Naturally. This is why he's going to be the president of Libya.
I know. This is what homeschool gets you.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, it's horrible if you homeschool. You won't be socialized. Well, let me tell you what, I was socialized.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I grew up really thinking like colonialism was bad. The expansion of Christendom was evil. But I want to talk about some of the projects you're doing, because it sounds like it's actually a blessing to the people there too. I think that's what's often missed, is that when you can enter chaos, take risk, and then create order, you're actually doing a positive good to the people there. So it's not just real estate, right, in Africa. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things you're involved with?
Yeah, so I don't want to get too deep into the specific countries that are involved, because we have relationships there that we want to maintain. But there's industries in tourism, also just residential real estate, and also agriculture as well.
Agriculture. Okay.
And so that does provide for jobs on the ground. The development of the residential real estate also does as well.
Interesting. So, I mean, to me, that's exciting. Historically, it seems like Europe had abandoned like colonial outposts there. If I'm not mistaken, I think like China is heavily involved in Africa to this day. So it's nice to know we have like good presence, good Christian presence. What are some of the challenges? I mean, you've talked about some of them, but the challenges of investing there, building business there in Africa?
It's the same challenges as you deal with in the United States, but just on a whole nother level. Like when I'm dealing with, I'll use New Hampshire for an example. Things are a little bit slower there. Everything shuts down in the wintertime. There's certain cultural things that you just have to get used to and be able to navigate. However, when you're dealing with Africa, there's some pretty enormous cultural differences. Perceptions of, is success a good thing for a young man to have? If somebody is successful in certain African countries, it's viewed as they've made some sort of pact with the devil, and that's a terrible thing. So just navigating those challenges is a huge part of this. The cultural aspects of that are very difficult to understand until you just start doing it. And, perceptions of what success looks like, of course, fraud and graft are big issues there that you have to navigate. And as a Christian, you have to take a stand and decide, that you're not going to participate in that. And how are you going to work around it in that case?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. One thing you mentioned earlier was the reindustrialization of America. It seemed to be signaled, I think, with Trump, right? With some of the, free trade policies, adjusting those, import-export business. I think this even related to what's going on with the dollar.
Yeah.
But maybe if you would talk about that, it seems like globalization, hopefully, is collapsing. We talked about in the last episode, like the homogeneity of what globalization does. What's kind of your read on that? I'm curious if you think it'll be successful, first of all, and are our leaders actually committed to that? But yeah, just your read on that.
I think it will be successful, and I think it's inevitable. And we're actually seeing it happen now. It's happening slow, but these things tend to happen slow and then very quickly. And so post 1945, the United States decided that we are going to patrol the global waters. We're going to set up free trade. And, essentially we're going to outsource a lot of our manufacturing to other countries around the world. And it really didn't matter to the United States, famously, as an economist said, whether we made computer chips or potato chips. It was all just going to be part of GDP. Well, it turns out that that wasn't true, and that it really gutted the middle class of America, and it created all sorts of second and third order effects that were really damaging to the United States. And as part of that, we sent our industrial base to all these countries overseas. That model is collapsing because on the one hand, we're running out of money. $20 trillion in debt, $200 trillion of unfunded liabilities. It just can't go on. It's unsustainable. And we're even having trouble selling the 10-year treasury note now. So things are slowing down, and that has an impact on how we can trade overseas as well. And the military is not getting less expensive. It's getting more expensive to patrol the waters. There's been a decline in America's naval presence in a lot of these areas. So it can't go on forever. And it's politically unpopular as well. And that's why you saw, even after the first Trump administration, going into the Biden administration, they kept a lot of the tariffs on China that existed because it's politically popular and it makes sense and it's inevitable. China is also going to be dealing with a huge population collapse as well. And we tend to think of them as this enormous country that just has infinite people. They made a lot of mistakes, sinful, wicked mistakes over the years that are going to lead to a population collapse. Yeah. And how do we deal with that? How do we deal with a lot of our manufacturing in Europe is from countries that are going to see a population collapse?
Yeah.
The answer to it is reindustrializing the United States. We need to grow the industrial capacity of the United States, probably triple or quadruple what it is right now. And so not only is it something that we should be looking forward to, even though it is going to have a lot of short-term pain associated with it, but it's inevitable. It's going to happen. And so it's important that Christians be at the forefront of that and leaning into it and have the possibility to be the new cultural elites in that system.
Yeah, that's such a good word. Brian, I think we've talked about this too, but the part of the thing that's tied in with industrialization is, Stephen, as you mentioned, the middle class. Yeah. I think Helen Andrews was talking about this recently, but she said with mass feminization, you've had the rise of what a lot of economists call the pink collar economy. So all the things that used to be done in the home,
The phrase alone.
yeah, nursing, healthcare, food services industry in general, they're all catered toward women. That's why, it's suitable and why so many women are going in the workforce. But what it's meant is almost the total destruction of middle class America.
Yeah.
So Brian, I just want to ask you, as you think about particularly like the average guy who comes to church.
Yeah.
Why is it so important for us as pastors to think through, like we care about that guy, whether or not he has a job.
Yes.
And most of them are not going to be white collar intellectuals.
No, they're not. And this comes back to something we talk about a lot on the King's Hall, which is that God made the world a certain way. And he made people a certain way. And he made hierarchies all the way up and down of interest and competencies. And not that God made a world where like most people are totally incompetent. And then you have a few people who are like totally competent. But people are competent in different ways and they're fitted for different types of tasks. And the reality is that God didn't fit or make the world such that 80% of the men that are in the world are really made to be the alpha ruler or manager of a big thing. That's it. Think about the math. If that were true, who are they managing? Right? There's nobody left. So God made the world where there are some people who are very gifted for higher leadership and management. And these are skills that you can learn within a range. But people are generally born with some kind of range where they can hit the lower end or the higher end, but their lower end, higher end is far different from somebody else's. So there is this reality that every time in the economy where we have destroyed some large percentage of the work that a huge group of those non-managerial, non-ruler class of men were doing, it has had hugely deleterious effects on culture, the family, because all of a sudden you've taken away the livelihood of a man.
Yeah.
You've taken away, men were made to work. We were made to bring order to chaos. Whether you're the managerial type or the guy that really was made to work for somebody, you were made to do that. So when you take that away, people suffer, and everything that people touches suffer because the people make the world, like we make the world. So when you think about manufacturing as an example, or making things or taking raw materials from the earth and turning them into useful things with which to love your neighbor and take care of your people, that's what the economy is. If you take that away, you will eventually just end up propping it up with a bunch of made up make-believe work. That's what we did. We invented fake work.
Well, this is actually interesting because I read a book. I'm not going to say the full title, but it's BS Jobs. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about how in America, in most of the Western world today, most jobs simply should not exist. So most of the work people are doing is completely meaningless. Mm-hmm. You're basically an email router.
Yeah.
That doesn't need to exist, especially with the advent of AI and how big that's become. Like most people know this. This is why there's like widespread rates of depression. Mm-hmm. But what's crazy is it's the same thing in the male nature that makes men so good at STEM subjects.
Yeah.
Is men are naturally geared toward like, I want to make something. I want to figure out how it works.
Yes.
And I could see that with industrialization coming back, that all of a sudden, all these guys who are like, we need to train you how to be a receptionist.
Yeah, and like,
he's like, no, I don't want to do that.
Absolutely not. And when I think about our church and the men of our church, we were talking about a business that is not in our state. And we're like, man, we should, invest multiple people from our church invested in it and have ownership in it. And I would love to see this business move to Ogden. And one of the reasons is because I immediately, knowing the number of employees and kind of how the business works, I go, we have men who could run that business 3 times as good, and they would be totally satisfied to do that. And we'd be now have a much more direct interest in how we pay them and how that business works in terms of its wealth generation and where that wealth generation goes. You look at our church, and there are just tons of men that I have total confidence in could step into many different types of businesses, whether those are manufacturing or business to business type of stuff or whatever it is, who could competently, whether from the management all the way down to, you need really good guys that you can trust that are taking care of the lower end parts of the business, right? I know we can do that. I know we can do that. And I'm thinking about the names of these men. And I'm going, I know they work for this thing over here that we don't own, and sure, it's okay and it pays their bills right now. But I know that guy. And if we could bring him into something that is owned with this nodes of trust, not only would we take better care of him, but I know he would do a great job.
Yeah, a huge part of it is thinking through like business as discipleship.
Yeah.
Right. Too, that you have real accountability in the church in a local area. But this kind of goes to the globalization issue where I think in The End of Men, the book, Hannah Rosen talks about this, but like Russell Athletic, I think it was in Georgia. Mm-hmm. And they shut it down because Warren Buffett's company bought it, Berkshire Hathaway. They bought it and they were like, we could save like 70 cents per garment if we outsource this to Indonesia. Mm-hmm. So they basically shut down an entire town in the South. And you ask the question, did they care about the workers? Did they care about the people? No, it basically destroyed, part of that region. And might have been Alabama, now that I think about it. Either way, it's like devastating. Whereas what we can do now, I think with hopefully reindustrialization, is say, what if we actually invested in those business and then we could employ our people in a way that was meaningful to them? And
think audaciously. Like I follow a guy on Twitter. I can't even, if it's Ajax or he's like a bodybuilder type of guy. Fitness guy.
Do you think it's like my secret account?
Oh, it was you. It's Eric. Yeah. That's a bodybuilder account. No. He's actually, it's not Eric. It's very adjacent, similar, but he's,
thank you.
He is involved right now in spearheading this American creatine project. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but he noticed he's fitness. One of the only supplements that we know for sure works really well for most people is creatine. Absolutely. Almost everybody should be on creatine.
And White Monster.
And White Monsters. Well, actually, yeah, because caffeine and creatine and protein are the three substances that we know work.
Yeah. John Daly was correct. Caffeine, nicotine,
equals protein.
That's
like, not true.
Let's just.
I want to be clear. It's not medical advice.
That's just science.
That is literally not science. Okay. So he's spearheading this project, and he noticed that basically all creatine production right now is in China. And not only that, but all of the precursors, the chemical. It's a very complicated chemical process to make really good creatine monohydrate. And so he was looking into it. He's like, why don't we do this in America? The last one shut down. You know how it. Tale as old as time, 20, 30, 40 years ago, whatever. So he starts looking into it. And it's like, this is going to take $200 million. And instead of going, I guess we're not going to have American creatine, that son of a gun. He has a big Twitter following. So he goes, hey, who wants to start the American creatine project? We're going to be having a meeting on this date. Here's where to apply. If you're a chemical scientist, if you're an investor, if you're whatever, son of a gun's making a creatine factory.
Isn't that great?
And he's probably going to do it. And copy and paste that onto about 15,000 different industries.
Yeah.
And all it takes is one guy who is super audacious and can connect the right people. And pretty soon you have reindustrialized something. And the thing that I think keeps people from doing this is they look and they go, it's too hard. It can't be done. All the naysayers. But a lot like everything here in Ogden that we've done, we found out about 3 years after we did it that you can't do it. They were like, you can't start a school like that. You could never do that. And we were like, oh, dang, we did. We should make some calls. We got some calls to make.
You can't start an alternative, alt-right Christian media
company in this economy.
Yeah, but
we did.
Apparently you can just, the elites don't want you to know this.
You can just do stuff.
You can just do stuff.
So what I'm saying is we start a competing American creatine company for Christendom.
That is one of the most exciting aspects of all this is how much opportunity there is.
Yeah.
There are so many industries that we don't even realize have gone offshore.
Yep.
But we have all the talent here.
Yes.
Like America has 9 out of the 10 best robotics research programs in the world.
Really?
But they don't have 9 out of the 10 most advanced robotics manufacturing companies in the world. It's completely inverse, right?
But you could.
But you could. Yes. And we could do it very well.
Anybody that says that Americans can't do something, I just say, listen to this clip of a Toby Keith song while we go do it. Right. You know what I mean? Like that, we'll put a boot. That's what I think. When people say
made in America.
Or I think like, we'll hang them high in the,
made
whiskey
in America. WD-40.
Okay, I didn't even think about
and a Craftsman wrench.
I didn't even think about that. One thing that very much relates to this, we're talking about industries where people just need to be audacious. They need to go try something. Not all of them are going to work, but people need to be trying audacious things and looking at industries where everyone says you can't do a thing about the way it is. You are involved right now in one such audacious. So Stephen's not just investing in Africa and en route to become the president of Libya, and maybe the Series 24 is based on his life, allegedly. Some have said it was me. You're also involved in rethinking the mortgage industry and building. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, and we're announcing this for the first time ever on the King's Hall podcast.
King's Hall.
Is that we are launching a fund, and it's very unique. We spent so much time researching the legal angles of this and how we could set up the entity. But essentially what it is investors bringing money into the fund, and we use that to purchase precious metals. Obviously, the track record of precious metals is very good. It aligns with what's going on in the broader economy too, as we see the crazy national debt, $200 trillion of unfunded liabilities, and the track record of what gold and silver has done, even versus the S&P in the last 15 years. So we're going to stake the fund entirely in precious metals, but then we're going to leverage out of that fund to do build projects in Christian boroughs. And so nothing like this has really been tried in the past, but we put a lot of research into making sure it would work, and we're launching the fund.
Let's go.
That's super exciting.
Let's go.
It was interesting the other day. I think it was Jerome Powell. Somebody asked him at a press conference what he thought about how high gold and silver precious metals were rising. And he's like, oh, we don't care about that.
Right.
So why go in that direction then? I mean, contra Jerome Powell, Stephen.
Well, it's based on the track record first and foremost. I mean, all of our funds numbers are based on, what happens if we just repeat what's gone on in the last 15, 25 years, and we see that. But if you look at the trends, they're actually accelerating. Central banks are buying less US dollars and are buying more precious metals. There's a reason for that, is that they expect these trends to accelerate and continue. And it's basic math. If you look at our national debt, our national unfunded liabilities, these precious metals are going to continue to rise in the future. Now, I mean, really anybody can go and buy precious metals and put it in a safe or put it under their bed or something like that. It is an advantage that we are going to do this at scale. But really, the key to this project is that we're not just leaving it in a safe somewhere. We're going to leverage out against that, and we're going to use it to fund build projects in Christian boroughs, so that the investor who's entering into this can be part of something much larger. They can be a patron of young Christian families who are currently just getting destroyed by the current mortgage and housing system and the price of homes that we spoke about earlier.
So this is an example of a couple things coming together. It's an example of rethinking an existing industry that's highly regulated and set up in ways that are contrary to the interest of the average American. It's also set up in a way or an aim to love our people well, like that young Christian family that you described. It's aiming to also vertically align, I believe, if I'm understanding rightly, with things like Christian borough projects, Ogden. There's some Christian boroughs where people are trying to build thick, vertically integrated Christian communities, trying to align as well with other Christian businesses, builders, and things like that. Maybe walk us through the use case, or just this is what we'd love to see this do from the perspective of a family that's looking to participate or something like that. What would it look like? What would you envision there?
Yeah, so from every stage, from the beginning to the end, we're using Christian companies. So we're using Steadcraft to do the construction, high quality, 1,000-year homes. Just people who really believe in what they're doing. We're using Alpine Gold to do the precious metals purchase, so another great Christian company. And then that's all flowing into a benefit where we're going to see the young Christian families be able to utilize loans that are leveraged from these precious metals. And so from the perspective of those young Christian families, they're able to reduce the amount of interest that they're paying. Potentially in the future, we could even reduce principal payments. It's really unlike any other system, but essentially what we're going to be doing is utilizing nonprofits that are based in these local communities. So the real forefront of this is going to be Ogden and also the Tennessee communities with Ridge Runner, but seeing these build projects really take off in those areas, because we know that young Christian families want to move to these areas, but it's really cost prohibitive for a lot of families to be able to do that. And so from the perspective of those families, they're going to be seeing a benefit from this, but it's going to be Christian patrons that are participating in this project and making it a reality. We really think God's going to bless that.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. So you guys have currently a board set up for this. Are you still looking for investors? You're just looking for people who want to buy and build homes? What stage are you at?
Yeah,
right
so
now?
primarily right now we're looking for investors, and we'd love to have that conversation. The fund's name is Exchequer and Cross. So exchequercross.com is a website that you can go to find out more and to get our contact information, to set up a time for us to meet. But we're looking for investors at this point. We have 3 initial build projects identified, but we want to do more.
Yeah.
And if God blesses us, it could be an incredible project for hundreds of families.
Yeah.
But we want to really focus in on getting it right in the first few builds, and then see where God takes it from there.
I do want to mention in our after hours, we're going to have Michael Foster in. He's outside the room right now of Steadcraft, and talk about some of that ethos behind the 1,000-year, trying to build quality homes and their vision for starting in the opposite direction of what most people are doing in terms of building, where they're saying, in light of the regulation and inflation and all these things, what can we do? And it's usually, well, we can build a really crappy house that's going to last for the 30-year mortgage and then need to be torn down and rebuilt.
Yeah, but Brian, now you can get a 50-year loan.
Oh, well, that solves everything.
Oh, great.
I can pay way more interest and lower my payment by $15 a month. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Actually, because the interest rate's going to go up with a 50-year loan. And they're starting with what kind of home should we be building?
Yeah.
If I'm going to serve my Christian brother or sister and build a home for them to live in and their children to be born in, and what kind of home would that be? And then how can we make that happen in a way that they can afford and that's going to work? Which is, if you know anything about construction, that's audacious. That's as audacious as what you're describing from the funding and the mortgage side and the investment side. So it's really cool to see all these worlds colliding, of the Christian borough, the Christian business, the funding of the mechanism, Christian investment, and try to do something that I don't think anybody's ever done this.
No, yeah, all the board members are aligned with doing this not out of a sense of profit motive. We're not doing like an annual fee or some sort of an equity split for the people who are running it. Mm-hmm. We're all just doing this in order to bless Christendom as a whole. And so we put this together in order to really take advantage of the trends that are already happening for the investors who are going to be in this program, but to bless Christian companies and to bless Christian families, and to see the 10 pegs extended out to the most that we can possibly do.
Yeah.
And we do think that God is going to bless it. I think one of the biggest aspects of this as well is that we are taking IRA rollovers. Mm-hmm. So you do have to be an accredited investor in order to join this, and we can help walk you through the process of identifying whether you are an accredited investor. But if you have money that's sitting in IRAs, which a lot of people do, you can roll over those IRAs into this fund. And now you're taking money that was going to companies that hate us, and you're putting it into seeing Christian boroughs expand.
Yeah. One thing I think of people listening who are our guys listening, and they hear a bunch of stuff that is terrible sounding on a level. They're like, oh, there's nonprofits. Well, we know how the nonprofits have been used to totally rape our nation. Oh, and there's lending, and we know how lending and what's been associated with lending over the years. And we know all these different aspects. What I want our people to hear on a level is, okay, yeah, understood. But what we're trying to do here, what is being attempted is to work within the possible. What is actually possible today in the regulatory environment? Like you said, I mean, probably countless dollars spent on, you're a lawyer, but you've had to bring in other lawyers.
We have had to bring in a whole legal board to make this happen.
To actually make this possible.
Maybe you're tired, gaining weight, waking up with joint pain, back pain, and a body that just doesn't feel like it used to. You've tried to fix it, but nothing seems to last. What if you don't need another app or crash diet, but a real coach, someone to meet you where you're at and walk with you step by step? At High Calling Fitness, our coaching comes to you wherever you are. You don't have to go it alone. We build personalized plans based on your goals, your schedule, and your equipment, even if it's just a set of dumbbells in a small space. This isn't just training, it's a personal partnership. You'll get weekly updates, one-on-one access to your coach, and ongoing support through Zoom and Slack every step of the way. We're here to help you build strength, restore energy, and claim the life you were meant to live. Book a free consult today. Let's talk about your goals and see how we can build something better together. High Calling Fitness, built for the everyday, ready for the extraordinary.
I've been having a problem with my friend Ben.
That's raw Ben nationalist to you.
I'm sorry, my friend Raw Ben Nationalist. See, he doesn't trust those big box soap companies with all their nasty chemicals.
That's right. Gotta keep my T levels high.
Right, which has led him to do things like not shower for days at a time. But luckily, I just got some of that new Indigo Sundry soap.
Ew, keep that away from me.
No, Ben, this soap is different. It's made from all natural ingredients and none of that nasty, harmful stuff. And so now my friend Raw Ben Nationalist here.
That's Mr. Sir Reginald Ben Esquire III. Thank you very much.
So now Mr. whatever his name is can shower in confidence. And so can you if you head to indigosundrysoap.com and pick yours up today. And hey, if you subscribe to any of their bundles or soaps, you get an automatic 10% off all your orders.
Delightful.
Okay.
So I think one of the things that can prevent, I want to just touch on it a little bit here. One of the things that can prevent our guys from doing anything is the purity spiral, where instead of asking what is possible being cunning as a serpent in the actual world we live in, what could we do? They ask, what would the absolute platonic ideal of the world be that absolutely doesn't exist? And then unless I can do that, I'm not going to do anything. And I think that kind of mindset can actually land us into perpetual servitude and being conquered by the left, because the left doesn't play that way.
No.
The left doesn't think the left didn't think in 2001, well, we want to cut off the genitals of children, which they did in 2001. Let's campaign on that today. Nope. Instead, they campaigned on, let's spend 30 years making sitcom media through Hollywood and the TV industry and the media industry that just normalizes gay relationships. Let's spend 30 years doing that. Okay, and then let's spend another 10, 15 years lobbying just for civil unions. Oh, we would never want gay marriage. Of course not.
I think the first time Obama ran, he was against. Yeah, he was against same-sex marriage.
And then gay marriage, love is love. And then before you know it, the acceleration to the ideal that they had established back in the earliest, most degenerate sex labs of the whatever Kinsey and these kind of absolute degenerates had cooked up. They got there a century later or 80 years later, and they did it by playing this strategic game. Now, of course, we don't want to imitate any of their sins. We don't want to imitate any of their ends. But one thing I think Christians and our guys can do better is to say, being cunning, what could we do today? How could we take some ground? How could we gain more economic power? How could we gain more leverage in this economy and slowly increase the pie of our influence and then progressively achieve some of our goals? I think that really can freak people out a little bit. So they hear stuff like this and they go, oh, that's all. So you're saying we're just going to be like we're just going to Jew everybody. That's the plan. And you're like, no, hang on, stay with me. Trying to help Christian families get homes and actually make that achievable and build them really well and involve Christian businesses all the way up and down. And we've got to work in this regulatory environment. That means we can't do every single thing we'd want to do today. But what if we did something?
Right.
And that's what I love about this kind of idea.
Yeah, it's about planting a flag at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
And saying Christians can come together and do incredible things.
Yeah.
And we can do these outside of the normal system that's in place right now, and just creating the room for God to bless it. Mm-hmm. And if it's successful, we can continue to grow that and continue to see God bless that even more.
Yeah. Amen.
Can I ask on the financial system and the way banking works now, like what were the specific problems that you guys saw? And maybe we've touched on some of these, but what were the problems you saw that you wanted to alleviate with something like this?
Yeah, so one of the things that the Bible talks about is usury over and over and over again. And that's more than just, hey, where do we set the interest rate for something? It's taking advantage of people who are in difficult situations. And the financial system that we have in our country definitely does that to everyday Americans. And so how can we reduce that as much as possible, right? We have to work within the current system. But can we set up a system where Christians can help reduce that as much as we possibly can? And so I think everybody who's on board with this really hates usury and really wants to see it eliminated. And that's important as you set up something that has financial components, right? We have to still work within certain legal parameters, because in order to accept money, into a fund, you have to meet certain guidelines set by the SEC and the IRS and all these agencies that will just come down and crush you if you don't do it right. But we think we've developed something that comes very close to what we want to see done at a larger scale.
So once this is all funded, everything's set up, I guess maybe walk me through the ideal for a homeowner or somebody who's going to build. What would it look like kind of from start to finish, their relationship with you in terms of getting the funding, going through the process?
Yeah, so those individual homeowners are working through nonprofits that are aligned with us. And so instead of paying a bank every month, they're paying that nonprofit. And that nonprofit is originating the mortgages to those families. And so they have this beautiful house. It's built by Steadcraft and just an amazing long-term generational gift that they're going to give to their children and their children's children in the long term. But instead of paying money to a bank that doesn't really care about them, they're paying it to a nonprofit. Now that nonprofit, by the virtue of the fact that it can receive donations, is also able to reduce the usury, is able to reduce the interest and the principal over time. And so that's what we really want to see happen.
Yeah, that's exciting. I would love to see that in more places. I mean, we've talked about this too, like even locally, but
Oh man.
just the opportunity to help people get in homes.
Yes.
I wonder if you would talk just a minute, because people have asked this a lot, and I'm a podcast host and I don't know all the answers here, but since we have you, what role in a lot of the housing stuff right now, like BlackRock, companies like that, what role are they playing? And I guess how is that affecting the real estate market?
Yeah, so one of the major players in this is Blackstone, which is a company that's just buying up a lot of the single family homes. That has slowed down a little bit, but it's something that you look at it across the system and it's just immoral, right? You have families that are trying to achieve some level of what they've been taught is the American dream. They're trying to stake themselves and create lasting value. And the government has really created a system in which the house is supposed to be some sort of store of long-term value, right? And that's not necessarily a natural thing that occurs, but through the various government systems, they've really created this incentive to get into a home as a financial vehicle. And this is less of a home and it's more of just a financial asset. And that has completely wrecked the middle class to the point now where you have people in Gen Z and younger who are looking at home affordability and are just, blown away by how difficult that is. At Curios Capital, we have done fix and flip projects and single family homes, but we have started to sell off those assets by and large because we don't want to participate in that system.
Interesting. So you're actually selling single family homes now?
Yes, we've sold all but one, and that one is on the market right now.
Interesting.
Wow.
And that was ideological.
It was. Yeah. These were homes that were technically cash flowing, and homes that we probably could have sold for cash to a big corporation. And instead we sold them off to families.
Wow.
Praise God.
How do you, if you're talking to other investors, how do you find it hard? Curious the process on this, but like ideologically convincing them of something like that? Because I think this is something we were talking about in one of our episodes recently. Like the whole mindset in a lot of the investing world is basically, I'm taking care of me. I'm looking for profit. But when you do stuff like that, it's not in the end just a financial calculus. So how are you, do you find it hard to convince other people of that in the investing world to make an ideological decision like that?
Yeah, I think success breeds success, right? So when you're competent at something and you're executing in a good way, you'll get a lot of people who are interested. And then it becomes, well, do I want to take this investor's money if they're so not aligned with my vision for the project? And that's what we've had to do recently is, sometimes somebody's not a good fit and you get a sense that they're chasing something that's ultimately going to rub up against one of the principles that you have in terms of investing. And you just kind of turn them away. And it's not something that many investors do, is turn away money from other people. And obviously you can't turn away everybody that's not perfectly aligned with you in every single way, but especially working through Christian communities, sponsoring New Christendom Press, as Curios Capital. We've seen investors come up who are aligned with our guys, who are invested in New Christendom. And so that's been really exciting to see. And when you get investors that understand the vision for that, they're willing to ride with you the waves up and down. And the first people who invested in me were from my local church in Long Island, New York.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
People who, were members of our church who found out that I was doing something cool and who put their faith in me. And that was how we got our first apartment syndication underway. And, you couldn't ask for better investors in that sense.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. One of the things I want you to do is just plug one more time where people can reach out to you. I will say you guys will be at the conference in June.
Yes.
So that's certainly a good time if people are interested, want to learn more, and want to interface with you. And I think Michael Foster is going to be there as well from Steadcraft.
Absolutely.
So that would be good for people to connect there. But yeah, just plug for me. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Yeah. So they should go to exchequercross.com.
And we can link to that in the show notes.
Yep.
So be sure to check that. So they just go to that.
Maybe we could have it come across in like sparkly, like
Yes, we
can do
infomercial
that.
across the screen right now. Just
That's
as I
right.
go.
But wait, there's more. For every home that we build with Steadcraft, we are going to be also executing a hostile takeover of a PCUSA church. That's right. That's actually not true.
That's actually not true.
So if they go to exchequercross.com, there will be a place where they can go and put in their contact information, and we will get a hold of them and sit down and we'll have a conversation. Again, this is towards accredited investors, but a lot of people count themselves out because they look at the requirements for that and they think, oh, there's no way. And then when they actually sit down and do the math, there's a way for us to get them invested in the project. So if you have money in IRAs, for example, this is a perfect opportunity to roll that over and have it staked in precious metals, but benefiting not companies that hate us, but benefiting Christian families. So that's the best way to get a hold of us, and we'll sit down and have a conversation and kind of educate the investor about the nuances of the investment and how things work, and get into a lot more details than we can get into today on the show.
Yeah, that's exciting. For the end user, the homeowners, how long do you have any idea of how long it will take to get spooled up where you're actually doing the mortgages and building process?
Yeah, so it's very customized based on the individual borrower, right? And that's one of the flexibilities that we have, is since we're working through nonprofits. That's really the job of the nonprofits, to select that out more than the investment fund. But you have a lot of flexibility there because we don't have to abide by the same terms that those who are producing government mortgages have to abide by. So there's a lot of variability in the types of mortgages that are set up. Again, we're using the kind of two flagship Christian boroughs of Ogden and Tennessee to be able to do that. And so having relationships on the ground there is going to be really helpful. We know families who are right now ready to move in and ready to make their Christian families and to be on the ground there in those boroughs.
Yeah, I think it's exciting to see that, and maybe we can close with that, Brian. But I've been encouraged, obviously here in Ogden, but Tennessee as well. Right after 2020, there was sort of this spike in interest that people are like kind of hitting the panic button, trying to make like immediate moves. But we've seen here that now we're in the phase where people are making long-term decisions. Yeah. And it's still shading in that direction of people realize like, no, I actually need to have like vision aligned, ideological aligned communities that have my back.
Yeah.
And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just such an important part of living, especially in a hostile world like this.
Yeah. Yeah. So many people, and I know some of them, in 2020 pulled the ripcord, moved from their urban or suburban area to a rural area, even going, the solution is I'm going to get some land and I'm going to homestead a little bit. I'm going to get more independent. And then they did that and they realized that actually the homesteading as a side job is probably pretty difficult for most people and not really going to be that helpful. You're not really going to do a lot by yourself. You're still going to have a job and afford it. And then they also ran into, and there was no, where's the church? Who are the people? Who are my kids going to marry? Who are we going to be friends with? Who are we going to hang out with on a Friday night?
You actually have to have networks of people.
Yeah, I'm going to be shaped by the people around me, and my kids are going to be shaped by the people around me. Are we just going to be this isolated, floating based Christian family that, kind of struggles through the homesteading thing and does some homeschooling, I guess, and then our kids grow up and go, yeah, but mom and dad, we can't live here. What are we going to do? Because I know you had that great remote job that let you work, figure this out. What are we going to do? And then many of those families are either have already or in the process of saying, yeah, we've got to actually rethink this and move and join a Christian community somewhere where they can get those things and where the people are. And that to me is the secret sauce. I actually, far less important to me is the question of like, what is it, rural? Is it urban? Is it suburban? What kind, where I'm much less interested in that than I am in, are the people there? Are you going to have the people? Because that's what you need. That's what you need. You'll do well if the people are there.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the pivotal part for me, especially as my kids get older, I have one who's married now, and you really do start thinking about like, what jobs are they going to work here? Because
puts a fire under
they
you.
wanted to stay.
Yeah.
But we're realizing in the community, but you actually have to have things that keep them rooted here. So schools and churches and really all these institutions that we've lost have to be rebuilt.
That's right.
And we have to have those resources so that they can stay and so that you can continue to have this community.
And when you have, what's amazing when you get started on building those communities and you see is that the Lord brings people, and through the network of the people, things happen that you never would have thought to do. Like this. You never would have, things that you never would have thought to do, but it took that other person and the skills they had. You know, you bring these skills of the lawyer and real estate investor. And so you've got a lot of experience in this financial world, but also the real estate world and also the legal world. And then you get together with another guy that's really passionate about building homes that people could live in for 1,000 years. And then you start thinking of, and just the natural network effects of people, they are, you can't even possibly predict what will happen when you get the people together. Things happen in Ogden now that I just go, I never would have thought of that.
Yeah.
But I have no doubt, I'm wildly overconfident probably, but I have no doubt that 30 years from now, there will be men in our church who employ in the hundreds of people and in more and more our people.
Yeah.
Because of the type of men they are that the Lord in his providence brought. You know, it says in Acts 17:26 that God appointed these boundaries and the peoples of the world. And he does that on that national level, but he also does it on the community and individual level. God doesn't build a church, for example, of all mouths. He builds a church that is a little microcosm of the body. It has a mouth, an ear, hands, feet, has everything that it needs to work. That's true all the way up and down. It's like a fractal. And when you get a taste of it, it's just hard to describe how glorious it is. So that we're always, people are like, why are you trying to get people to move to Ogden? I'm like, I'm not necessarily just trying to get people to move to Ogden. And some people, we say moving to Ogden isn't the right move for you. But I am trying to get people to consider, even if it takes radical changes in their life, if they don't have that, to get to where they do have that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really helpful. I think we'll end here. Stephen, it's been great having you. Appreciate you joining us. I would encourage our listeners, come to the conference in June. You can go to newchristendompress.com. Is it /conference?
Go to thewarfornormal.com.
Oh, excuse me.
Which is our conference website.
The War for Normal.
And one of the events that we actually have a sponsor of the event here in this room.
What, me?
It's Stephen Totter.
No.
Of our golf tournament.
Yes.
We are putting on a golf scramble, 4-man teams. If you sign up and you don't have a whole team, that's great. We'll put teams together. That's going to be a ton of fun, but also we'll have a singles
you're
mixer.
You're playing, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
playing winning.
He might not be Scotty Scheffler, who listens to the show, by the way.
Well,
and it's going to be, he definitely listens. And maybe. I mean, I hope he does. But we say, like, every show we pitch, we're like, look, Scotty,
if you're listening, can I call you Scotty?
And he's like, no, you can't.
We have a singles mixer,
Yes.
which is a great way for single men, young single women to meet, have an opportunity to meet a lot of people. And then if you have interest in anybody you meet, be able to connect with them through the conference weekend.
We had a lot of marriages.
Ways. We've had another one a couple weeks ago that just took place from the conference, from the singles mixer. Got a business mixer, a VIP mixer. There are a lot of events. We've said this over and over, but every year of the conference, we've tried to make it more and more geared towards friendship, coalition building, making new alliances. It's not just about coming and hearing talks you could hear on YouTube. It is about making connections with people. Your whole family. I got to go out to New York and meet your family and see what's happening there. But also having you guys here. Just there have been opportunities from getting together that you can't get any other way.
Yeah.
We've also this year tried to make our conference more affordable than ever with the Family Pass, which is a one ticket cost it covers a husband and a wife and their household, their children, immediate family. And we've had so many families sign up and be able to come to the conference this year that when I looked into the math, I was like, wow, this would have cost you 40-50% more in previous years. Why didn't we think of this earlier? And we've been able to have even more Because of that, I will say the conference is like 40% more sold out for this time of year than it was any other year. And we do have a cap on our venue. So I do think it's going to sell out. And I would encourage people, if they're going to come, to plan ahead. I'll be putting on a concert of only Imagine Dragons covers.
What about, okay.
Yeah.
Listeners have asked this question.
Yeah, okay.
When is the Creed
It's coming.
cover coming out?
Listen, guys, it's coming, okay? We're going to get it done. The Creed cover that I promised is coming. And it will be coming out in conjunction with an announcement about my next album that, Lord willing, I am aiming and working hard to launch the week of the conference, a brand new album. I'm probably going to need your help to do that so we can talk. Creed cover's coming.
I feel like right now you might be 6 feet from the edge.
Well, I'm thinking maybe 6 feet.
Maybe it's not that far.
So
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's going to be an amazing conference.
looking forward to it.
It's going to be great. Well, we appreciate you as our listeners. Be sure to tune in to the after hours. We're going to have Michael Foster.
Statecraft.
CJ Engel's been on.
Yeah.
So definitely check that out. You can sign up and become a patron, support the show. We definitely appreciate all of our supporters who listen. And until next episode, have a great, I don't know what day is today.
This has been the King's Hall podcast, making self-ruled men who rule well and win the world.
Yeah, that.
And we'll catch you next time.
That's exactly what I meant.